What's up, guys? So want to do another video, and today I want to expand a little bit on the idea we talked about in the video I did 2 days ago, and that's the idea that we need a good base, right, to be successful in pretty much any athletic endeavor. And my understanding of the base is that the highest return on investment you get from your aerobic base and your strength base, right? And today I want to talk a little bit about the aerobic base and how I go about building it. So this is a very well-known concept in endurance sports, is that you have intensity, right? So working hard, and you have volume. And volume just means like doing a lot of work, like the quantity, like could call it quality and quantity, right? And there is some kind of inverse correlation, because while you can do both at the same time, you can't do a lot of volume at a high intensity because you're simply going to burn out. And in endurance training, we know that the volume is one of the most important drivers of adaptation. And I made a reel on Instagram about that. Recently, there was an interesting study where they proved exactly that. So in terms of VO2 max, specifically stroke volume, the athletes that trained the most had the highest stroke volume, because you just need a lot of volume, and that means a lot of hours spent training for all those adaptations to occur, right? And that's why they say, like, sprinters are born, endurance athletes are built. And like, obviously that's an oversimplification, because you have to do the work to build both endurance and power. But it's true that, and of course genetics also play a large role in endurance training. But in endurance, you really, there is, for one, no way around doing the work, and you can compensate for a lot of like lack of talent by just doing a lot of work. So this was an idea I kind of had a couple of years ago, so a little bit my training history. So I have a military background, and I have a strong strength training background, right? So, and a little bit of martial arts. So when I was in the military, we just moved a lot by default, right? So you spend like a lot of time walking, you have your like group PT, and you have all your like training exercises. So basically, if you're infantry or similar, you're moving a lot. And on top of that, I did my strength training. So that was basically like ideal base building, even though I didn't understood it at the time. And then when I got out, I started focusing on martial arts, and specifically I was grappling a lot, and I didn't do any endurance training, right? And what I found is my aerobic base just eroded. So I wasn't recovering from my workouts. My health was declining, and my overall conditioning sucked, because you can't really make progress and maintain progress without that base. And in 2021, I got serious about my strength and conditioning again, because I understood I had to change some things, and I really digged into the literature, and I decided like I need to build up my base volume, especially as I'm getting older, because when you're young you kind of can get away with, like, it's not ideal, but you can get away with doing things wrong. But as you get older, you really need to build that base. And I started running, and I suffered from something that's like it's not a scientific term, but Phil Maffetone calls it aerobic deficiency syndrome, right? So basically your aerobic system is so weak and underdeveloped that your anaerobic system takes over even at very low intensities. And that means you can't really, like probably a lot of you are in that camp, or you were in that camp, is you can't really work at a low intensity like jogging, easy work, without like mouth breathing and without your heart rate shooting through the sky. So basically you can stay in zone 2. And the only way to like really rectify that is to just go easy and do a lot of work. And in the beginning, like I wasn't able to do a lot of work, and also like my tissues weren't adapted to it, and I built up over the years. And yes, last year I ran over 1,000 kilometers in a year for the first time. Now that's not a lot for serious runners. Like some of you may think it's a lot. It's not a lot for serious runners, but like for me, and also on top of my kettlebell sport training, like that's quite a lot. It's around like 20 kilometers per week on average. And now I'm going to expand on that experiment this year, and I'm going to try to do 1,000 kilometers of running and 1,000 kilometers of brisk walking. And that's going to be, of course, on top of my kettlebell sport training and on top of some other training I'm doing as well, some cross training I'm doing, some rowing, some shadow boxing and stuff. And the idea is, like, what I want to impress on you is that you should really get into the habit of having an endurance training routine. And if it's hard, it just means you're going too hard, because now with kettlebell sport training I get basically all my high intensity work there, and all my running and of course the walking is done at or below nose breathing intensity. Very easy, and it might seem like a waste of time, but like I've been like progressing this idea, and it makes, like, it's completely consistent with physiology, physiology, and also with what we know about like endurance training. But for me, it's been working great. Like, even though I've crossed like this critical age where I'm like officially middle age, I'm turning 35 this year. Like, all of my markers are going up. Like, all of my resting heart rate is really low, stays below 50 consistently. My 5k times, my mile times are improving, and of course, like, my main goal, my kettlebell sport performance, is also improving. So I've tested this idea of like consistently increasing the volume and keeping the work like really low intensity, because my main thing is like this. There's this saying like work before work rate. So like my main thing is I want to do the volume consistently, and some of that is going to be in zone 2, some of that is going to be in zone 1, and some of that is even going to be in zone 0. Like, when I'm walking, I'm doing brisk walks, so I strive for at least 6 kilometers per hour, and you get some, like, you get benefits in terms of like fat oxidation, like metabolic benefits, and you get benefits in terms of building mitochondria, but the intensity may not be high enough to actually get like real cardiovascular benefits, to like really stretch the heart. But I'm not concerned with that. And also I'm doing my jogging, I'm doing my zone 1, zone 2 work, where I'm actually in that 130, 40, 50 beats per minute zone, where I'm really stretching that hard. And also I'm doing my high intensity work with, for me, mainly kettlebell sport training, but you could do other stuff. If you're a fighter, you could do like hard wrestling. If you are just a runner, you're going to run intervals, obviously, and so on. So the gist of the video is like trust the process, improve your volume, and give yourself time, because even though I was quote unquote fit with like an athletic background, it took me 3 years to get over to 1,000 kilometers of running in a year, which really is not a lot, right? But you just trust the process, you build up over time, and if you have to, you go easier, because that's like the main reason I don't just try to pack on even more running this year, because I understand it would be difficult to do, because I'm doing kettlebell sport training, and that's already very intense in terms of stress on the muscles, on the joints, etc. So in order to increase the volume even more, I'm just adding walking on top of that. Okay, and so that's really all there is to the aerobic base. You have to do the volume, you have to be consistent with it, and you have to do it over years. And especially, yeah, and of course, then once you got the volume in place, you also want to sprinkle in some high intensity work. So you can't just do only low volume, but that's really the base. And that's all there is to it. Like if you want like all the science behind it, plus a structured approach, like in terms of how to exactly program it, and also a combination with a strength training program, a highly effective one, you can check out my hybrid starter pack with the link in the description. And I hope you found it useful. It's really about like trusting the process, and like building a system and putting in the work, and it's going to work out. Hope you found it helpful, and see you guys next time.